What's happening, Gothamites? Kwing here, and today I am giving you my thoughts/review on Titans Episode 6, Jason Todd. Now, before we begin, just quick heads up, this video will contain spoilers. You can listen to it as you would a podcast, because I don't dare post any footage or clips, unless I could, somehow make one on Patreon you guys could go pay for, but I don't have time because I've been running ragged just trying to keep my second channel from syncing because of YouTube's, whatever YouTube is doing. I don't even care at this point. I really want to talk about this. So the Titans show has been going on for 6 episodes, and last week we got a tease that Jason Todd was going to be in the show. And having watched the episode Jason Todd, wow, it's just, I have no idea the direction that this show is going anymore. I thought it was dark, and then it became darker. Like, Robin's brutality as Dick Grayson has been upped to 11 with Jason Todd. Like, somehow this show is able to make a fine line between brutal Robin and murder Robin, aka Jason Todd, the new kid on the block. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. All right, so the whole premise of this episode is Jason Todd saved Dick Grayson at the end of episode 5, where Dick was surrounded by a bunch of assassins and didn't have his Robin suit, so it looked like he was toast. And then Jason Todd arrived, kicked all the ninjas' butts, and made one of the coolest sidekick intros I've ever seen in a superhero show. I mean, that was awesome. So the reason why Jason Todd is looking for Dick Grayson, not only does he idolize the original Robin, which is a very Tim Drake trait, not so much Jason Todd. Jason Todd always wanted to prove he's better than the original Robin. Version 2.0 is better than 1.0, the quitter. And he likes to rub that in Dick's face, both in the comics and in this episode, which I thought was great. But he's no detective. He's just a streetwise punk that knows martial arts. And the Gotham PD is getting these weird pictures of former people in Dick's life, which are Haley Circus members, that are being murdered by this unknown new big bad in Gotham. And this murderer still believes that Dick Grayson is the original Robin and has it addressed to Robin. And Jason, being the street punk that he is, put 2 to 2 together and really believes that this is a case from the old Robin's past. So he tracks down Dick Grayson, which I won't want to spoil how he does that just yet. We'll get into it. Works with him, and basically 2 Robins are going to be on a case together, and, a time for the new recruit to get to know the original veteran and, see if they can get along. Personally, I think the characterization for Todd in this is spot on. This is a guy that has issues dealing with authority. He has a huge hero worship problem with Batman and Robin, although they kind of incorporated a little bit of the Tim Drake stuff where Jason even tells Dick Batman needed a Robin, so I signed up. That's more Tim Drake than Jason. Jason just tried to boost the tires off the Batmobile, and Batman was like, this kid's got potential, and that's how Jason got the job. And Batman was trying to channel Jason's rage, because in the comics, he was left by his mother and father. His father was later killed by, insert random bad guy here. Sometimes they use Two-Face, sometimes they just use random crime family, or just, his dad got unlucky and ended up at the bottom of Gotham River. But for the sake of this show, surprisingly, both parents are still alive. They've just abandoned their kid, and he was with his uncle until he was about 13, and his uncle OD'd. So Jason, for most of his life, during the time that Batman and Robin were active in the streets of the city, was living on the streets. Now, probably a couple months after Dick Grayson left, we'll say about 6 months, which the Titans show takes place about a year or so after Robin was last seen in Gotham. Although this episode has quite a bit of contradiction compared to some stuff, but we're just going to let that slide because I think that Jeff Johns and the writing team actually did a great job with this episode. It's one of the most interesting episodes of Titans so far, and it continues a theme. The first episode was clearly about Detective Grayson and, meeting Raven. The next episode was about Starfire. And then the third episode was the introduction of Beast Boy. And then you had another episode where, they met the Doom Patrol and squared off against the nuclear family. So, I mean, there's been a lot of really great character arcs, Hawk and Dove, but there's way too much to go into, and I just really want to focus on the whole Jason Todd stuff. So, Jason, as you know, he kind of had a bum rep, but at the same time, he is a murder machine. This is a guy that, even though he's funny, right off the bat, he is just crazy. Like, insane crazy, and he does it with a smile. One of my problems with the Titan show that I've had is that Grayson is so unhinged that he's not really acting like Grayson. When Jason Todd fights enemies, he is chatty. He is like really trolling these people, and it's something that Jason does. Jason believes that he is so far above everybody and he is like superior, and it is the best job in the world to be Robin, so he's going to live it up, and he does. So that was kind of a interesting parallel between Grayson and Jason. And even though Batman, you don't see him, it still feels like Batman is in the shadows. So just how Dick Grayson and Jason Todd talk about him throughout this episode. And also, Batman is pretty miffed that Dick has left his employment. So to further punish him, since Batman has all these different safe houses where Grayson and Jason go in the show, Batman has gone ahead and changed all the passwords. So when Grayson tries to do his eye scan, to get inside one of the safe houses that's in Chicago, which is a beautiful condo slash like skyrise building that Bruce Wayne owns and nobody can ever get in. It's got some cool bat gadgets, a bat computer, all that other stuff. When Grayson tries to get into this penthouse that he's been to before because he's worked cases with Batman, you have to remember he was Robin for about 10 years. So, I mean, he's done his own thing. He's worked with other heroes. And the audacity for Batman to limit his access to all the bat gadgetry is kind of hilarious. And Jason just kind of like, oh, he changed the locks, I got you, bro. That's how he talks too. He's like, bro, he's trying to be very loose, trying to be very friendly in the beginning. And he opens up the penthouse, shows Dick around, and even talks a little bit about how his costume is a better improvement over the one that Grayson wears. It uses a new type of like Kevlar material that's way better than Dick Grayson's stuff. And Jason is really trying to illustrate this picture that you're the old Robin, I'm the new, improved, better Robin. And he really honestly believes this. And this is what really gets Jason into trouble. Not so much in the Titans episode, but I can see him getting killed by the Joker or some other character in this series. So anyway, the banter between the characters I thought was great. They showed that little blurb like on Batman Day where the replacement is talking to Dick in the elevator about how like, oh, Robin is the best job in the world and he even lets me drive the Batmobile. And Dick is like, he lets you drive the Batmobile? And Jason doesn't say yes or no, but he kind of hints at like, nah, you didn't get to drive it? Well, sucks to be you. I'm better than you. And he just lords this over Grayson the whole time. And I'm just waiting for Dick to just like punch this kid. And it never happens, which I was waiting for that buildup. They do the buildup showing that Jason is a jerk the entire episode and that he's going to do whatever he wants. And I was just waiting for Grayson to, put him in line, but that doesn't happen. So anyway, we find out some really bizarre things about Batman in this episode. One being that it turns out, which Grayson is not thrilled about, Batman has actually installed tracking devices under the skin of the left arm of both Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. And while Jason knew about this and thinks it's cool because if we get kidnapped, he says, Batman can come find us. And Grayson sees this as kind of like, what the? So as soon as he gets into this condo, he goes in and surgically removes the bat tracking device because that's how Jason was able to find Grayson. And Jason is kind of like, whoa, 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 bro, what are you doing? Why'd you take that out? You know, he's kind of like, this guy's crazy. And Dick wants nothing to do with Bruce or this Robin. And then we find out why Jason is here. And pretty much there's this guy in Gotham who's going around killing all these people that Dick Grayson knew from Haley's Circus. And I forgot to mention that the beginning of this episode is another flashback sequence of 10-year-old Dick Grayson, right during, probably we'll say, within a 6-month period of his parents being killed by Tony Zuko, hired by the Maroney family. You know how the story goes. So they do quite a bit of flashbacks, and I like that, but I feel that some of the flashbacks got a little bit too extreme. And I know that Robin hates Tony Zuko, but he does something that we'll get to. I wasn't expecting. As a Nightwing fan for life, a fan of the animated series, a fan of the Bronze Age and 80s and 90s, and even like some of the modern Batman stories, this one really threw me for a loop. I was kind of like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" He's not Bale. So one of the coolest things about this episode, from Dick Grayson's point of view, we actually get a flashback of the Batcave and the Batmobile. And the Batmobile, I'm telling you right now, while we can't see it totally, it seems like it is a combination of the Keaton Mobile, that sleek, sexy look of the vehicle that was the Burton Mobile. And on top of that, they've added some of the black and red accents of both the 60s Adam West show and the Batman Brave and the Bold. But for this series, it works. And it also paints a very different picture of Batman because, according to Grayson, Batman is supposed to be Murder Man. So, you know, when you see this Batmobile, it's kind of like, wait a second. This looks like a very sophisticated, intelligent, very useful Batmobile. This doesn't look like a tankmobile that we saw with both Christian Bale and Ben Affleck. So the Batmobile, like I said, it's a combination of Keaton and Adam West, and it works. I mean, we can't see if the Batmobile has like the jet propulsion in the back, but I'm pretty sure it does. And a lot of animated series fans have also pointed out like the sleek bullet design of the Batmobile also is a callback to the animated series. So they're really trying to do a lot of fan service for some of the Batman stuff, but you don't see the Batman suit. You just see the Bat computer, the Batmobile. And the reason why Dick is in the cave to begin with, he was just on patrol doing some stuff, and he is a police officer, I believe, for Bloodhaven at this point. He does have his credentials as an officer to get in to view Tony Zuko, who he put away for life when he confronted him as a kid. As you know, like in the comics, like Dick, pretty much his first, I would say, probably 6 months as Robin, took down Tony Zuko, which is something that Batman never got to do. He never got closure of his family's murder. Eventually, in some other incarnations, some Elseworld stories, and some very early Batman stories, he did get closure by killing Joe Chill, but it made it worse, which is why Batman Forever, that movie, tried to go over that a little bit. But we're assuming in this universe, he's had no closure. And just like the Batman comics of today and a lot of the movies, Batman has never caught the person who killed his parents. So that is kind of like a driving force with him. And the reason why Dick was always able to heal and move on and become a better crime fighter, a better man, not only is because of the father-son relationship that he has with Bruce Wayne, but also the fact that he got to close the chapter on his family's murder, while moving on and becoming a hero and taking all these things that he's learned to make him a better person. And he hasn't fallen into the abyss because of what Batman has done for him. However, in the flashback, which I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this, but pretty much Dick Grayson pulls a bail and lets Tony Zuko die. So the whole reason that Dick is so upset is because Tony Zuko is going to be released so that the feds can use him to take down the entire Maroney family, which is a crime boss family in Gotham. They're really bad. They were responsible for ruining Two-Face's life. The acid that was used on his face is what made Harvey Dent into half the man he is today. So the Maronis were known for using acid and a lot of other really nasty stuff. They were a really bad crime family. So they tied Dick Grayson to the Maronis and the Zukos and, other crime-oriented stuff. And I think for the narrative for this episode, it really did work. But more or less, Dick Grayson kind of made a jerk of himself as a police officer representing probably Bloodhaven or Gotham. They don't really say. I'm assuming it's Bloodhaven because it's a sister city of Gotham, and I think Zuko was in prison over there. They didn't necessarily say he was in Blackgate. I didn't catch what the name of the prison was, but the setting looked very Bloodhaven. But anyway, Dick is arguing with this FBI guy saying, this man has blood on his hands. He murdered my parents. And Zuko's son, Nick, who I don't remember Zuko having a son. He had a daughter, which later in the comics Grayson hooked up with, especially the New 52, which was weird. But Grayson kind of spilled the beans about how much he hates so-and-so, and because of this, his son is able to put two and two together that Dick Grayson is Robin based on what happens later on in the night. And when Zuko's released, Robin is not thrilled that Zuko is on the street. So if you've ever seen Robin's Reckoning Part 2, where he just hammers into Tony Zuko, who's played by the actor who did Biff from Back to the Future, amazing episode. And in that episode, Robin actually almost kills Zuko. Well, they took that idea and they ran with it off the cliff. Not only does Robin brutalize Tony Zuko, but when the Maroni family shows up to kill him, Zuko pleads with Robin to save his life, and Robin's just like, no. And he watches, like, pretty much Chris O'Donnell when Two-Face dies in Batman Forever. Like, I don't know if he technically commits manslaughter. I think he does, because he has the ability to save this guy from being gunned down from the mob, and he sits there and he watches Zuko get destroyed by the Maroni family and does nothing. And the Maroni family's, I'm sure they can see Robin there, and maybe Robin takes them down later. But I mean, that would be kind of a interesting discussion between Batman and Robin, because Robin is supposed to be the lighter, happy version of the duo, and here we can see kind of later the very brutal aspect of what Dick Grayson becomes after he quits and feels that Batman has turned him into this monstrous weapon that he can't control, which is the writer's way of explaining that throughout the series of Dick Grayson no longer being Robin, when he puts this mask on, he becomes more brutal and dangerous than he ever was as Robin. So they're saying there was actually a time in Robin's career where Batman and Robin were not brutal maniacs, vigilantes. They were duly deputized crime fighters that were actually a benefit to Gotham and the rest of the world, like taking the slime off the streets. But after he had the falling out with Batman, he lost the trust. He led to the death of Tony Zuko. He left. And there was a catalyst for this. So Zuko's son, Nick, who was not a member of the crime family, this is important, he was just this normal guy who wanted nothing to do with his father's empire, and he was clean. I could kind of paint an illustration of, if you guys have seen The Awesomes, the son of Malekio was just this normal accountant, and due to some events, he ended up becoming a villain. That is the same thing that happened with this character, Nick Zuko. They tried to make him like the Two-Face villain for Dick Grayson. For me, the villain was very weak. Anyway, so Zuko's son and family is targeted by the mob because once the father was dead, there was no police protection, witness protection, anything like that. So Zuko's daughter, the mother, even Nick's fiance and him were targeted and wiped out by the mob using the acid trope that they used on Two-Face. And pretty much I would definitely say that Nick became the Two-Face villain for Dick Grayson. It kind of works. That part of the episode, again, was very weak. It would have been great if they could get Two-Face, but I believe Two-Face is tied up in the DC cinematic universe, so the bat embargo won't allow the character to show up. Nightwing will be an exception because Chris McKay is still working on the Nightwing movie, and he got the rights before Titans rolled out as a show. So you will have dual Nightwing characters. You will have the actor who plays him on the Titans show, and then you'll have whoever Chris McKay, brings into the movie universe once they get around to it. So the episode, it ends in something that just has you going, whoa. And I wasn't expecting it because, let me just say, we've seen some really R-rated stuff with the show. Titans is not a show for kids. It's not a show for teens. This is an adult-heavy, heavily inspired George Perez, Titans, Marv Wolfman comic book gone like Deadpool levels. I mean, each episode gets darker and darker and darker. And what Jason does after helping save Dick Grayson, or at least distract him, which they did mention how the Robins use their colorful costume to distract the bad guys so that Batman can swoop in and do his thing. And Jason thinks that's the coolest thing. And Jason actually does this later in the episode near the end, where he comes in and Dick's friend from Haley's Circus, one of the only surviving members of the circus, is about to be, classic comic book, doused with acid and destroyed that way. And Jason comes in and, basically says that Zuko had a way out and beats him up a little bit, but then Zuko shoots him. And if it wasn't for Jason's higher tech armor, the acid bullets, don't ask me how that works, but the acid bullets would have probably killed Jason Todd. And Dick does not like that the younger Robin got hurt, so he goes full-blown like brutality on Nick, breaks his legs, arms, mashes up his face even more, even though the poor guy's face is like silly putty. It kind of looks like, it reminds me of what in the 90s comics that Black Mask did with his false facers, where he would put like this gross acid and burn people's faces to get them to join his club. It was really disturbing. So I really think Jeff Johns brought in some of that. But anyway, everything is going great at this point. Both Robins are working together. They make a good team, pretty much. Dick has the experience, and Jason has like the comedic timing, and he really plays a very good Robin. Until Dick asks him to deal with the police. Now, in Dick's mind, when Batman and Robin are trying to avoid the police, because the police, while they work with Batman and Robin, to an extent, they are still considered vigilantes that need to be dealt with on sight. And how Batman and Robin have dealt with these guys in the past is knockout gas or, leaving before the cops show up. But unfortunately, this time around, that's not really possible because they have to deal with a wounded strongman who's been burned by acid. He survives, but he's kind of messed up. So Dick tells Jason to go deal with the people who are coming, which I don't know if he knows if it's EMT or police or whatever. He probably knows it's cops because he has a little bit better technology than Jason does. Jason is a very street-oriented person. He's not really big into the tech-savvy stuff, which is very true to his character. But anyway, for the longest time, when Jason is hiding from the police officers, you think he's going to use the smoke bombs that he did at the end of episode 5 to deal with the assassins. Nope. Jason goes full-blown maniac and kills every police officer there, whether it's a man, woman, doesn't matter. He uses tactics that are way more than brutal. He even breaks a guy's back and taunts the guy like he's less than human. This was a very disturbing scene for me, coming from a family of law enforcement and just how Batman and Robin have dealt with cops before. Like, Jason is beyond out of control, and I would say he is evil. Like, hardcore evil. And he enjoys it. He wipes out all these cops, and when Dick sees what he did, he comes in and he's just like, "What are you doing?" And I was getting so hyped up because I was like, "All right, Robin 1 is going to put Robin 2 in his place. He's going to beat him down." But it didn't happen. Like, have like a verbal argument, but what Jason says about like how he's Robin, he can do whatever he wants, and he hates cops because when he was a kid, the cops used to beat him up because he was on the street committing crimes and stuff like that. So he hates police officers, and it gives you this vivid image of what Jason is like on the streets of Gotham, which is a holler back to his comic book. I would say after Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Barry Allen died, Robin, even though he was running around in pixie shorts and boots, he was a murderer. He killed a lot of different criminals and paralyzed people. He was tarnishing the name of Robin, and I really don't feel bad for dialing up with my parents' permission to have Jason Todd blown up, because he was a very immoral, bad character beyond redemption. He was out of control. He was going to become like the next Batman villain. There was no way that Batman could save this soul. It was lost. And that is part of the reason why Batman beat himself up so much, is because he failed Jason, not just because he didn't save him, but Jason was out of control. Jason doesn't listen to authority. Jason hates authority. Jason is impatient. He's reckless. He's brutal. He's a murderer. I can go on and on and on. And this show, I will give them this. They fully captured Jason Todd to the T. This actor, he did an amazing job. I hate Jason Todd in the show, but I think I'm supposed to, because this is the last we're going to see of the character. He gives Dick some very clear advice. Jason is Robin now, and what is Dick doing? Who does Dick think he is? He's not Robin anymore. He doesn't want to be Robin. He's carrying the Robin suitcase all over the place with him. He showed up in this warehouse as Robin. And, Jason's just like, "You know what? You're a loser. I'm better than you. I will always be better than you. And I'm going back to Gotham to work with Batman, who's the best dad ever. And you suck. I looked up to you and I hate you." And that's what I got, like, at the end of the episode. And, one of the subplots that's just kind of annoying, that the old man from episode 5 survived, and he's going to play a bigger role in the next episode, episode 7, which comes out next week. But this was a huge Jason Todd story with a lot of Dick Grayson flashbacks. It's a full-blown Robin story, like the very first episode of Titans. And, I mean, it was incredible. But at the same time, I am really surprised that the writers and the cast and everybody was able to make a clear line between what makes Dick Grayson as Robin different than Jason Todd. And one key thing that I want to mention before we close is that Dick Grayson even tells Jason, there's a huge difference between what I do, which is, knock out thugs, than thugs being dead. So he was trying to tell Jason that he's not like Batman, even though Dick Grayson has done some really unspeakable, brutal acts in this show. He admitted in this episode, although I don't know how, that everyone that he has faced as Robin, minus Tony Zuko, he has not killed. He did do the Christian Bale thing, and was responsible for not just the death of Tony Zuko, but his entire family. And he turned Nick Zuko into kind of like a Two-Face / Joker arch enemy that we might get to see again, or he could be like an offshoot. And the only things that I hated about this episode was the fact that Dick Grayson gave his identity away to people. Nick figured out who he was because of his tantrum as a police officer and the fact that Robin let Zuko die on the bridge. So he put 2 and 2 together. Dick Grayson was Robin. So I'm going to, make this murder plan and take everybody out that Dick was ever close to. So, I mean, that was kind of a loose story point. And the strongman that he saved, he told him that he was Robin. And the guy was like, "Does Bruce Wayne know that you work with Batman?" And Dick is just kind of like, he doesn't think that Bruce Wayne could be Batman. That's funny. So, I mean, There was that part of the show. The Titans really don't play a big role at all. They'll have a major role in the next episode. The only thing I could say for Starfire is her costume's changing. She doesn't really look like a streetwalker anymore. She is becoming more her Starfire character. So I think that was kind of cool. And, Raven and Beast Boy are just kind of hanging out in the swanky Robin place. A lot of Batman Easter eggs. I would recommend, if you are over the age of 18, to check this episode out. It's got some pretty extreme stuff, but it's a lot tamer than episode 5 that literally had people's heads exploding like RoboCop style, which I wasn't expecting. It's like, what the heck is this show? But to say that it goes from dark to darker, a lot of reviewers are right. That is what happens with this show. But I like the episode. I don't like Jason Todd. I love the actor playing him. I think he did an astounding job, and I really hope they do the Red Hood thing and that Jason becomes an arch enemy for Dick Grayson, because based on what he did to those police officers that were just trying to do their jobs, and he just mercilessly murdered them in some of the most brutal ways that I've seen in a martial arts film. Wasn't so much like, throwing shurikens at them the way Dick Grayson did. Talking full-blown body and headshots and breaking necks and all kinds of stuff. I mean, those cops, they're gone. And I didn't think that they could do a thing where they showed the difference between the two Robins, but they definitely showed you why Jason is a very dangerous Robin. But anyway, people, that's it. That's all. Thanks so much for listening to my review of Titans Jason Todd, which you can watch on the DC Universe app if you have your computer or cell phone or whatever. I know this got kind of lengthy, and it's just kind of like a podcast thing. But anyway, in the comment section below, tell me what you thought about this episode. Do you agree with me? You think Jason is definitely going to be a bad guy, if that's what they're trying to orchestrate with the character? How did you feel about the flashbacks and overall tone for this episode and this series in general? Titans has been renewed for a second season, and since I was a hater of the series originally, I am a believer now. I think it's a really great cinematic style show. It could use a little bit higher budget, but the storytelling, it reminds me of the comics of the Titans when I was, a kid in the 80s. Astounding. But anyway, people, have a good one. I will be back with a news video sometime this weekend on the full cast of the Birds of Prey. Thanks for listening. Later, Gothamites.